Hello and welcome to Teaching My Cat to Read, the very serious book review podcast. I'm Eli.
I'm Em.
And I'm Lottie. And this week we're discussing everything about Gideon the Ninth by Tamsyn Muir.
I have been wanting to read this book for probably years at this point, it must be. And never got around to it, and I'm so glad that I have now got around to it, because, oh my god, I enjoyed it so much.
Excellent. That was going to be my first question, honestly, was like, how did you guys, as first-time readers, because this is something like my fifth go-round, and I want to know what the first-time reader experience was.
Well, I borrowed this from some friends of ours, a hard copy of this, and, devoured it in one day. And since then, I have been trying to I've been desperately going around physical bookshops trying to buy a copy of this and the sequel, so that I could have them, my own copy, so that I could, take them places and dog-ear them and generally, not worry about it being someone else's book. And today, I managed to buy both of them. So thank you, Waterstones and Sheffield City Centre, for being the first bookshop out of, 6 or something that I went to have these books.
It was an epic quest.
It really was. Well, I'm about to go travelling and I want to have them with me so that I could read the sequel and cross-reference it with stuff from this book, because there is so much going on.
Yeah, no, you will. I can confirm that having them all out in front of you is a very useful way to read them.
Mm-hmm. Shall I read the book summary? I feel like it actually kind of gives a good introduction to it.
Which is impressive because it's a hell of a lot of stuff going on.
It's a very complicated book.
Yeah. So the book summary: the Emperor needs necromancers. The ninth necromancer needs a swordsman. Gideon has a sword, some dirty magazines, and no more time for undead nonsense. Brought up by unfriendly, ossifying nuns, ancient retainers, and countless skeletons, Gideon is ready to abandon a life of servitude and an afterlife as a reanimated corpse. She packs up her sword, her shoes, and her dirty magazines, and prepares to launch her daring escape. But her childhood nemesis won't set her free without a service. Harrowhark Nona Gesimus, Reverend Daughter of the Ninth House and Bone Witch Extraordinaire, has been summoned into action. The Emperor has invited the heirs to each of his loyal houses to a deadly trial of wits and skill. If Harrowhark succeeds, she will become an immortal, all-powerful servant of the resurrection. But no necromancer can ascend without their cavalier. Without Gideon's sword, Harrow will fall and the Ninth House will die. ...
I've got to say, it's very entertaining to me how long it takes Harrow to realise that she does actually need Gideon around.
Yes.
It's there in the blurb, babe. Come on.
Just the setup to this book. Honestly,
it's one of my favourite opening lines and opening chapters of all time.
It's
genuinely
so good. I realised I'd lost my phone when I started reading this book, because I read the first line and immediately wanted to start messaging you and being like, holy crap, Gideon I'm already in love with her.
Yeah, she's amazing.
I think it's the sass.
But yeah,
it's the sass.
I had my terrible summary was, while you were busy deciphering the sum of all necromantic transgression, I studied the blade.
And it turns out you need both of it to complete the plot.
Yeah. I think there's so much going on in this book that so when I read it, I don't know, what did I mean, my terrible summary was sunglasses and a two-handed sword, and I really cannot state how much I enjoyed this book, because I was going into it, I was a bit I have no context this book. I had barely read the back of the book. I was right, to start the audiobook. And I started it, and I really, really enjoyed the audiobook narrator, who I will go and look up in a second. Did an absolutely fantastic job of narrating it. But also, so sometimes in fantasy books, because I can't keep up with who's who in the names, I Googled wiki it. So I did slightly spoil myself. But it did not take away from the enjoyment of the book.
So the hard copy has a dramatis personae in the front, which I really appreciated.
Yeah, I think I just kept reading the character list on the I guess it's the Gideon the Ninth wiki page, and that really kind of helped with the kind of the context and the names, especially because
you guys are both much more sensible than me. The first time I read it, I was just Yeah, no notes, head empty. I'll lose track of characters. Track of characters you don't even know are here. Like, it's taken me 2 or 3 goes round to, like, hold them all in my brain.
I was referring back to that dramatist person I like a lot for the first 3 chapters.
I mean, I definitely had to do the same thing I did with this book that I'd done with Brandon Sanderson's The Stormlight Archive, where I've kind of, if I can't keep track, I'll, like, look up the wiki as I go along. I guess unlike with Stormlight Archive, I couldn't spoil myself with that because it was a new book. But this, I tried to not spoil myself, but the setup of it is so good. And then when I like realised why it's like that, I'm like, oh, now I have to read the second book. And I'm not kidding. I stayed up so late listening to this book. I was like, I have to know what happens.
Oh, so have you now listened to Harrow as well?
No, but I might have read too much of the wiki, but I think it will help me follow how it goes on in Harrow.
Because I've got the hard copy and, like, I'm supposed to go back to my day job tomorrow after 2 weeks off, and I have actual commitments to make, like, to honour, but otherwise I would absolutely be, like, bunking
my
off work
immediate
just to
purchase after about chapter 3 of this book was to download book 2 on my Audible. So, yeah.
No, absolutely. And, like, there's a third one out, which is Nona the Ninth, but it's only out in hardback as of time of recording. Yeah. And I'll want to own them all in, like, matching paperback, so I've got to wait until that comes out in paperback.
Also, the cover of this book is beautiful. Can I just, like, whoever did the cover art for this?
Yeah,
10 out of 10.
Incredible. Just
whoever did that, you need a raise.
Yeah. The drama, the sheer drama of it is... Yeah,
but like pleasing. It's so good because like you sort of there's a range of ages of characters in this book because you have like some that are like parental figures to others, and you have like the 2 main characters are like 17 and 18 respectively, and it does like sometimes it really comes through that they're like over dramatic teenagers, they're sort of dealing with a lot of adult responsibilities because this is that kind of book, but sometimes you do sort of remember like they're over dramatic teenagers.
There's a moment just before they get to, so they start out on their home planet Ninth House, and then they get the Emperor's summons and they're going to the first house, which I think is supposed to be Earth, judging from, and this is our solar system, and the first house, given that it's mostly ocean, I think, is meant to be us.
I have spoiled myself, I think, because I've read way too much.
Oh wow, you've spoiled yourself that far, huh? Oh boy.
Yeah, don't spoil me. Don't spoil me.
I don't think it would take away from my enjoyment of the series. I will say that.
I've got to say, I was spoiled for a bunch of stuff in Harrow, and like the thing is, Harrow is so f***ing bat that it meant absolutely nothing to me until I got to it didn't do anything. Like, you can't retain this information. It's too much.
I'm really good at retaining spoilers, unfortunately, so I really have to avoid them.
We'll be really careful. We'll be like lip locked.
I will say nothing because I think I went down the wiki rabbit hole because I loved the setup of this book, and I was just like, I want to find out more.
I really had to struggle to not do that. Like, I was so tempted, but I know myself, so
I'm still gonna read them all, even though like I have gone down the wiki rabbit hole. By the way, just like if Tamsyn Muir is listening, I will read your books. I promise. I promise you, I will listen to them.
But yeah, I was thinking about sorry, I got distracted for a second there. But yeah, the bit that really struck me, them being teenagers versus the like, big scary necromantic nemesis with big swords type thing. So they're on the shuttle to the first house and they're about to land, and there's this moment when they realize that they're nearly there and they're gonna and they both just look at each other and then start like frantically like straightening out their robes and redoing their face paint and stuff to be like, look, we're serious business necromancers. Nobody can know that we are tiny babies and our house is dead.
That hate each other's guts, no less. Because like they hate each other, and they have to present this front of like being totally like in sync and sort of trusting each other. And
the Gideon has been using a rapier for more than like 11 weeks.
Yeah, and the thing is that you sort of go, oh, it's going to be the story of like how these two managed to like successfully pull off this deception, and then what it turns out is that everybody is doing a deception of some kind.
Oh yeah, like massively.
Like, I think maybe only the 8th house isn't? And the 5th, maybe?
Yeah.
I mean, the 5th are kind of... The thing is, the 5th are fairly upfront about it, but they're not really there for the Lictor trials.
Yeah, for... oh, gosh, I've forgotten her name.
Abigail.
But for her... Yeah, for Abigail to try and become a lictor, they're just kind of there for learning and
Yeah. They want to nose through all the god emperors or like old diary entries and post-it notes and things and work out what was happening like just post-resurrection.
Yep.
But yeah, I don't think they're like. I think she actually says that to teacher that she's not really interested. So I think everybody apart from maybe the 8th is there with another motive. Like they're not just there about the lictor trials. But I think the 3rd and the 6th are the main ones that are also lying their asses off, which is a lot of fun.
The 7th house is definitely lying its ass off.
That's
that is in fact the main plot of this
See,
book.
I don't count them because in my brain I'm just like, that's a whole other...
Like the whole, like, okay, big plot spoiler. If you haven't read this book, go away, read it now. This is like the Temeraire thing where we're like, just stop everything you're doing.
Pause,
yeah, you
go
absolutely
away.
do not listen to this episode if you haven't read it.
And
You
don't
need
read the wiki.
You need
Don't
to
do like I
experience
did.
it unspoiled. But yeah, sorry, Eli, go.
So the whole thing is that like every other house is represented as well, except for the 1st house, because the 1st house is just God, essentially. And the 7th house is not really the 7th house. Somebody did a kill and replace in transit to Earth, or the planet where they all are. And nobody, like through a series of sort of coincidences or whatever, nobody is able to know this until the person who did the kill and replaces has her master plot, dastardly plot, almost ready to succeed. Yeah, so saying it really isn't the 7th house that's
true,
doing
yeah.
that. Although she was originally, the character that is masquerading as somebody else was originally from the 7th house, like the character that she's pretending to be.
Yes.
But like a lot of, there's a bunch of like, oh, this character was secretly dead all along. That happens. Which I do enjoy. I think that's a very fun trope.
Yeah. I particularly enjoyed on this go around the, so they find out that, the fake 7th, they don't know she's fake yet. The fake 7th necromancer has been piloting her undead cav around.
Yeah, cav being cavalier.
Yeah,
swordsman.
so like the sword arm of the necromancer, basically.
Oh wait, hang on. We everybody who's listening at this point has read the book, so we don't need to worry about that.
That's true. But yeah, she's like, it turns out it was a total accident. Yeah, he is dead, but we're doing kind of the same thing. I think at that point she does know that the 9th isn't a real cav.
He's dead, but it's fine. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. Just don't worry about it. He's dead, but it's fine.
And then the 2nd is like, hey, would anybody else like to announce that they are an undead construct or skeleton or otherwise walking corpse? And then teacher comes in with, maybe later, Lady Judith.
and he himself is a construct.
And it's so good because like I did not get that the first couple of times round, and this time I was just like, that's f***ing hysterical.
Yeah, there's going to be so many little jokes. I'm so looking forward to the reread. I'm torn between whether I want to reread this before I read Harrow, or if I want to just go straight into Harrow and like reference stuff in Gideon.
I mean, I've done it both ways, and I think it's fun either way, honestly.
Let's be honest, I'm going to do both over the course of the next couple of weeks.
Yeah. I mean, the thing about Gideon for me is like the question
is, what do I do first?
Yeah, it's such a weirdly rereadable book, considering how like complicated it is and how much is going on. Yeah, I think it's very, very easy reading, and like considering how like dark a lot of the world building is, because like
I love
the
that stuff though.
Is f***ed up.
Oh, it's mental.
I adore that stuff.
Like Gideon's whole like motivation of like not wanting to be an undead skeleton for the rest of her, like for eternity on the 9th house, and wanting to get, there's some really messed up shit in here, but yeah, it's like extremely readable.
I think because I'm not a big fan of horror-esque books, I think it was one of my hesitations when I was going to read this. I was thinking, oh gosh, like what if it just really isn't my cup of tea, and and it was really, really readable. But I think it's one of those things where it is like obviously quite graphic in the descriptions of what's going on, but because it has that fantasy element, I think there's a level of like separation from it, maybe like it's sort of sci-fi fantasy magic system that happens to be necromancy in a similar way to like when I read Wheel of Time, my only other point of reference. But there's some bits in that which are quite dark, and then I reread it as an adult going, I read this as an 11-year-old, didn't pick that up. And it's kind of the same thing, I think, if I read it because I was so taken along with the plot. Like when they go to Canaan House and you're thinking, oh, this is exciting. Oh, this is and Gideon's got her sunglasses, her aviator sunglasses.
I love
she's
that.
wearing, and it's just the image of her just being this sort of suave, like, like sort of. I imagine her sort of how like David Tennant moves as Crowley in Good Omens. That's kind of in my head with sunglasses and a giant longsword. Like that is the mental image I have of her, and it was just such. She's
so cool,
a good character,
and like also a dork.
Yes,
and
exactly.
they're like disagreements with her and Harrowhawk.
Oh my God.
Like,
just like the names alone, just the Midnight
so
Haggett. And
yes,
Yeah.
and it's just sort of their names for each other are so
the Penumbral
brutal.
Sovereign.
I wonder if do we find out in Harrow why she calls her Griddle?
I don't think we do, actually.
It's just, yeah.
She's just being a massive bitch. That's
I think I really enjoyed it. And I think I know there was a note on like the audiobooks and fantasy pronunciation. I do think this did help a lot actually with the names because I could hear the name.
This is the most trouble I've had with fantasy names since I read Harry Potter. Like,
I really liked it because so many of them are like Greco-Roman. So I
so
really
you
liked
were
that.
fine. I was just sitting
That
there
was
like,
absolutely
I've got nothing.
Yeah. I tell you what is hard is Protesilaus. That's that one I had to think about for a bit.
No.
The Cavalier for the 7th.
I'm still doing that wrong. I checked the pronunciation guide this time for like the first time ever, and I'm still going to pronounce Gideon's sword mum, Iglamine.
Yeah.
Iglemini.
I think she's Iglemen.
Okay.
Iglemini? Oh my god.
Iglemini. I think that's how the audiobook pronounce.
And I know that I pronounce Palamedes. It's Palamedes, not Palamedes.
Palamedes. Palamedes?
But my brain is like, I'm doing the Archimedes pronunciation.
yeah,
You can't stop
I would
me.
say Palamedes, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter at
But
all.
they're really good fantasy names because none of them are like so out there that you're like this is just made up.
Yeah.
And I think having them be based off either like Greco-Roman stuff or straight up just names that we have like Magnus and Abigail
Yeah.
being like it helps it not seem like this is a capital F fantasy novel and I'm going to tell you fantasy things, which was part of my issue with Warbreaker was that the opening of that was very much like that. This doesn't have that at all.
Yeah.
And I prefer that, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's got a very nice balance of high fantasy with the magic system, but it's in a setting that is quite relatable, plus also that sort of sci-fi element to it with the spaceships. I didn't know quite where to place it in terms of genre, but
Yeah, it's very odd. I mean, for me, like Gideon particularly, I tend to think of as a country house murder mystery because it's got it's very and then there were none. They're stuck on an island. Something's picking them off one by one.
The dwindling party.
Technically, it's what's picking them off is doing it for sins they haven't quite committed yet, but also they're all complicit in this awful necromantic empire that's sort of floating in the background.
Yes.
So they can't get out, and it's got to be whoever's doing it has to be one of them, which is very Agatha Christie to me. So that's where I tend to sit it in my brain, even though, like you say, there's a lot of other going on.
I think the fact it's in effectively like a closed room murder mystery helps with the fantasy element, especially with the necromancy element, because unlike I guess
it helps limit the scope. You're not going to be, you aren't immediately going into, and this is how it's impacted, this is how the magic impacts all of society. You're doing, this is how the magic impacts this specific scenario.
Yeah. And you also, I mean, I think that's one of the places where Gideon's point of view really helps you out as well. Because, like, even though you get the hints that, like, Gideon actually does know her shit when it comes to necromancy. There's a line, I think, quite early on where she's like, she could fill in for Dr. Skellabone without being able to do a single theorem. Like, she knows her shit, but she's also just fundamentally not interested.
Yeah, she does not care. She just wants to have big sword and have pretty women think that she's cool.
That she's cool, yeah. And, like, to be fair, she does get a lot of that, at least in the first half of the book. Until the murders start, she's doing quite well on the sword fighting around pretty women and having people admire how big her biceps are.
And, like, for what it's worth, I feel like she and Coronabeth would absolutely date. Like, I feel like Coronabeth was not unreceptive to Gideon's, like, checking her out.
Oh, no, definitely not. Yeah, I think I could see that, totally.
How would you compare this to, say, Sabriel in terms of, because I guess Sabriel's probably the other book that we've read.
It's the big necromancy one, isn't it?
Yeah, it has necromancy in it. I think this is definitely much more older teenage fiction than like Sabriel, if Sabriel
I
is
really
young
wouldn't
adult.
put Gideon in like the young adult section, really.
No.
Yeah, I don't know that I would. The thing is, it's fun. So in my head, it can't, and it's good. And in my head, that means it both can't be for adults, and I don't know. It's like it's that thing of genre fiction where it's like,
this can't possibly be
it's
serious.
really hard to
right?
place in that way.
It's a bit like Discworld getting put into young adult because it's like, well, no, what what this book is talking about is also like adult stuff, and like the relationship between Harrow and Gideon is sort of. I don't think I would have got that as a teenager. I don't think I would have understood it. I mean, insofar as, I could say I can understand it now, but like, I think I would have been just kind of not, it wouldn't have resonated with me in any way.
Yeah.
I think one of the things of reading this book in particular as an adult, and their ages, is that I think one of the things with fantasy books is you have like an 18-year-old main character and they are basically completely infallible and they go on this quest and they save the day and whoop-de-doo, and they're not actually like an actual teenager being put in this situation.
Whereas these are very much like their teenagerness f***s them over sometimes.
Yeah, and you're reminded of their age, I think, quite a lot. Like I because in my head, sometimes like when I read books, everyone sort of is the same age as the main protagonist, if that's like they're sort of all roughly the same age. But this actually kind of reminds it, which is helpful as a reader, but also, some of them are 13, 14.
Yes, the horrible teens. I love the horrible teens. And I obviously you don't get this in the audiobook, but a lot of their dialogue is like in tiny caps. Because they're like whispering to each other off screen,
it's so sweet.
And Gideon's like overhearing them saying dumb teenage and then being super embarrassed by like Magnus's dad jokes and stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Which is dead cute.
Yeah, and I really liked, like, so thinking about the other characters and like the sort of range of ages that you have, it was really well done in that you have those figures that are kind of parental and you're just like, these guys are going to die. There's no way these guys are going to be allowed to continue to be simply good and protective and parental. Because that's not what this book is. Clearly, that's not what this book is going to be. And they're the first to die. So, yeah.
I actually had to put it down. I knew it was coming, and I actually put it down and didn't read it for 3 days.
Yeah.
At that death. I was like, I'm sorry, I can't handle it.
It's just so sad. And then you get
so
every
sad.
single other character basically turns up to try and save them. Because it's necromancy, so even after they're dead, there's still maybe something you can do.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's so sad. Yeah.
Even the ones that are up to that point, and actually some of whom continue to be unlikable to the bitter end.
Exactly. That's part of what makes it powerful.
Like, even the 8th are trying.
Yeah.
And they f***ing suck. Actually, that's not fair. I love Colum. Colum is a sweetheart and he's doing his best.
Yes.
Silas Octokisaran can meet me in the f***ing pit.
They die because he doesn't do the sensible thing. Like, their magic is like, hey, what if I took your soul out of your body and used it for power? And I promise to put it back, I pinky promise. But while I'm doing that, you're just going to be kind of stood there empty. And all of the ghosts in this incredibly haunted palace that they're staying in think that's free real estate and possess his nephew. And then the nephew goes, like, is puppeted by all of these ghosts and does a lot of murder. Yeah, and it's just really sad.
And it's like, I thought that's a fun one as well, because like that's like the first thing Harrow says about the first house is that it's a graveyard.
Yeah.
And that never really gets brought up again, except in that, there's a lot of hungry ghosts around, my guy.
Yeah, well, the teacher does say that. He says, like, don't ever do that here because it's turbo haunted and don't leave free real estate lying around because ghosts love that.
Yeah.
Which is funny to me because teacher is, like, basically made out of those ghosts.
Like, he's like 500 ghosts in one dude's body.
Exactly. He's like, don't be like me. Don't do it.
But yeah, I enjoyed the other thing I enjoyed about that with the 8th in their sort of final showdown thing is that when they do that and Colum gets sort of eaten and transmogrified and possessed and it's bad. It's really grim. It's bad.
Yeah, it's really well described. Great piece of horror.
Yeah. But the reason they're doing that is because Silas Octokisaran has decided that lictordom, which is the thing that they're all there to try and do because God asked them to.
It's getting a good grade in necromancy. You basically, like, it's sort of the ultimate in getting a good grade in necromancy. And these are the try-hardest of try-hards.
Yeah. And B, it's pulling somebody's soul out of their body and eating it for power, which is essentially what he's been doing the whole fucking time.
Yeah.
And he decides that it's heresy, and he's like, no, I'm gonna with this, actually.
Yeah.
And you're like, just the sheer hypocrisy.
Yep.
I do not feel sorry for the way that he died at all.
Yep. He gets stabbed through the throat, didn't he? His nephew stabs him through the throat.
Listen, Colum can have a little uncle murder as a treat.
Well, it wasn't even him. That's the sad thing. He didn't even get to do it.
Yeah, no, you're right. That is sad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to read this book again now. I want to stop recording and go start reading the book again.
I was thinking of, since we're talking about magic systems and lictordom, I actually had a question for you guys, which was, so the lictordom thing is basically the necromancer sort of eats. They keep saying eats, and it's really uncomfortable. The cavalier for power, basically. Mm-hmm. And then they become this, like, black hole of necromantic potential, and they're basically unkillable, and it's this really important thing. But it is also fundamentally, like, a really, really awful thing. And they've all been raised on this idea that, like, their cavalier is, like, the other half of their soul. And it's like, you know, this is the most important relationship you'll ever have in your life kind of thing.
Yeah. It really reminds me of something.
I'm wondering if you think if anybody else, because we have 2 new lictors by the end of the book. Mm-hmm. Do you think anybody else who went to Canaan House would have, given the opportunity, become lictors?
I think the 5th house might have done the same thing that Gideon and Harrow did, in that if it was the only way to have Abigail survive, or to save the universe from something like, you know, a pissed off lictor trying to murder God.
I think to save the 4th, if the 4th weren't already
I think
dead.
they would have done it, yeah. But not to become a lictor. It would be to become a lictor in order to do something. And that's one thing I really like by the end, is that Harrow is like gone to the 1st house being like, I absolutely must become a lictor. This is the only thing I care about ever in my entire life. This is what my entire life is about. And in the end, she desperately doesn't want it because it will mean Gideon dying.
And is in denial, I think, for quite a while throughout the book about what it actually is. Because that
would have to mean that she'd have to confront that she doesn't want it on those terms.
Yeah, because I think Pal has definitely worked it out by not very far in. Like, I think he's worked it out.
I think it's been like partly a gut feeling on his part, and partly like evidence that confirms it.
Yeah, and I think the fact that he and Abigail have access to the same notes. There's a bit they're talking about at the dinner party that she's got a copy of notes that the Sith have about lictordom. But the thing is, he works it out, and he's like, I think it's like a mega theorem. I think it's like, you've got to put all of this stuff we're learning from the challenge rooms and stuff, you've got to put that together, and then you'll be able to do all this really cool necromancy shit. And Harrow is like, I think there's a treasure in the house. I think there's something else. She's desperate to have it not be something that involves Gideon.
Yeah.
And that was really interesting to me. But I don't really think, I think you're right. I think if it was the only way to save the 4th, I think the 5th would consider it. Yeah. But I think that's the only, I was going to say, I don't think the second I think would only have done it under those conditions as well.
Yeah. Like, lictordom not for its own sake, but as a means to doing something else.
Yeah, because I mean, that's what whenever we see them do anything actually interesting.
Yeah.
Like the whole, we've killed teacher and now we've killed everybody else to get the message out so that God will come back and we can stop all getting murdered one by one. They want to save lives. Yes. They're really fucking bad at it most of the time. Like the whole challenging the sick thing, I'm still really mad at. But yeah, that that's their goal there, is to have there be absolutely as minimal deaths. That's their goal and their duty.
Which as necromancers is very funny to me.
Yeah. And particularly as, like, cohort necromancers, they're literally soldiers.
Yeah.
Which I think is a very interesting contradiction that they have. But yeah, I don't think the 4th would have done it. The 8th already said they wouldn't.
Yep.
Pal says he wouldn't.
Yes.
Like,
I also think that in the right circumstances, Camilla would have done the same thing Gideon has done.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think you're probably right.
But then again, like, that will probably be true of so many people with a good, like, necromancer-cavalier bond, right?
Yeah. No, I think that's true.
That's kind of the saddest thing about the bond between them, is they're sort of set up as to be supportive of each other. And you read it as a figurative sense, not in the literal sense.
Yeah.
You know, supporting your as a cavalier, like supporting your heir.
I wonder to
through
what
and
extent you, as a to become a lictor, it specifically has to be your cavalier that you eat, or it has to be anybody, but the cavalier is what is going to make you the strongest, being like a compliment to you who can wield a sword. And
like, do you have to love them? Because that's the thing with Babs, isn't it?
Is the role of cavalier literally just existing because necromancers need to eat somebody?
Yeah, they need to have. I can't remember which one who was absorbed the soul and then used like the sword forms of that cavalier.
Oh yeah, that's Yanthy and Babs, yeah.
And like it was kind of, they're both in the same body, but...
Yeah, that's exactly what happens, and that's why cavaliers need to use rapiers, because necromancers, like, sort of almost genetically can't really put on a lot of muscle mass. They're all like feeble, like twinks. And so the rapier is the only weapon really that's going to be light enough for them to hold, and they need to hold it with their feeble twink body after they've eaten the soul and the knowledge of the cavalier.
When you Google the rapier as a weapon, it literally just stabs. That's it. It doesn't slash, it doesn't cut. It's a stabby.
Well, this is why Gideon is so like, this weapon sucks, actually.
Yeah.
I agree with her. Like a two-handed broadsword.
And yet she manages to become incredibly good with it in 11 weeks, you know?
Like,
that's my girl.
Have you not played Skyrim?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Two-handed broadsword, just like cutting stuff, that's useful. But like a rapier, like stabby stab. Like,
But Harrow's body couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And that's, I tell you what, that is actually, you could terrible summary the whole plot of Harrow as Harrow tries to carry a two-handed sword around for a whole book and fails miserably.
Yeah. Oh god. Oh no, I'm sad. Oh no. I need to read this book.
You really do.
Ugh.
But yeah, it's like, it's kind of unclear whether you need to love your cavalier, whether that needs to be an important relationship, or whether Yanthy's done something very wrong in eating Babs.
There's an addendum at the end of the hard copy, I don't know if this is true in the audiobook, about like a little essay on the relationship between cavaliers and necromancers.
Oh, yeah.
It's really interesting.
No, there isn't that. Which I think maybe is probably why I ended up going down the wiki rabbit hole, because I wanted to get context for, in particular, when I was listening to the audiobook, the lictors and the, like, kind of what they were, because they were talked about with kind of a bit more reverence, and also, like, follow the plot characters. And then, because I have went down the wiki rabbit hole because I'm a noodle brain, what is actually quite nice is, I think, when you come back to reread this after having read the others, that there will be bits that you can pick up on.
Yeah.
Which I found really exciting. And it's probably one of the reasons I got through this book so quickly, because I'm like, oh my god, there's another thing. I just have to know.
I can confirm the reread value of these books is immense. There is so much stuff. Even just because, like, getting the Dulcie reveal and the what lictordom is, going back and reading it all with that context, not even having read Harrow, you get so much more out of it, and it's a really fun reread. And then you go and read Harrow and you come back to it and you're like, holy shit!
Excellent.
You know?
I'm so excited for this, for myself in the near future.
Yeah, no, I am excited for you. It's going to be a good time.
I guess, what did you guys think of the humour of this book? Because I found this book in places really funny, and it balanced out quite well the gothic horror.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
Of this.
Like, the bit where it's like Harrow has foiled Gideon's plan to leave the Ninth, and it's like this, like, you know, Gideon could have used this as like a catalyst to, you know, change her life and do better about something or other, whatever. But she didn't. She got the depression, and I just thought, oh my god, that's
so
I
good.
use that phrasing. That's like how I talk, you know?
Yeah. I mean, for me, like, it's still the first line is still the, like, in the
Pinnacle.
myriadic year of our Lord, the 10,000th year of the King Undying, the kindly Prince of Death, Gideon Nav packed her sword, her shoes, and her dirty magazines, and she escaped the house of the night. You can't top that! Just, like, the balance between the really, really formal...
It's the Tolkien thing, isn't it? Different registers.
Yeah. And then this, like, really informal, almost, like, meme-based register is just absolutely hysterical.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, really, really good.
But yeah, it was interesting. I was thinking about this in contrast to, weirdly, Small Gods, actually, in that it's a very easy read because of the humour, but what's going on underneath will occasionally, it's always there,
It'll
and
grab you.
occasionally it will just gut punch you. And it's very effective because it means it doesn't feel grimdark and you don't get mad depressed reading it or feel like, you know, this is all pointless and everybody here is awful, even though they kind of are.
Yes.
Because it's just so f***ing funny.
Yep.
Like, there's a bit where I think Gideon, I can't remember when it is. I think it's maybe after she's found out that Pal and Dulcie are kind of a thing.
Oh,
and
yeah, she's just like, she lies on the floor.
She lies face down on the floor and becomes hysterical. And I'm just like, best protagonist move ever. Like, so relatable. I love this for you.
Yeah.
And like, Harrow's just like poking her with her foot. Like, come on. You're being ridiculous.
Yeah.
Get out now.
Because it's that thing of like having realised that you've been embarrassing. You know, that realising that something's been really awkward and you haven't been aware, and it's just such a perfect representation of like, I love it.
Yeah, it's so good.
And like the way that, exactly, like Gideon lay face down on the floor and became hysterical. The way that it's written is so plain and just it's so funny. It's so good.
And it's just like, every time I reread it, I am blown away. I think maybe I imagined it, you know? I'm like, it can't possibly be that consistently well written and funny and have so much going on and still be so easy to read. Every time, and then I'm blown away. There's not a single dud line in this whole f***ing book.
Well, there's one line that I want to call out in particular, which is it's after. It's when Harrow's like, Gideon, you've got to come with me to the first house. I'm demanding this of you, blah, blah, blah. And Gideon's like still really, really angry with her for scuppering her escape plan. Yeah. And Harrow looks at her and goes, "Oh, I have hurt your heart." And in the original draft,
that I have
Tamsyn
rustled
Muir's
your
editor
jimmies.
made her take it out, but it was I have rustled your jimmies. It's so funny. Like, I remember I got to that line and I was like, there's something about this line. I know this line was originally something else that was really funny. I've got to go look it up. And like looking it up and reading it as if it were that in context is so funny. Because I have hurt your heart sounds like a lot more serious, whereas I have rustled your jimmies is clearly Harrow is like taking the piss out of her.
And also it's like fucking cartoon nemesis behaviour as well.
Exactly, yes. Which is exactly what she's trying to be. She is an overdramatic 17-year-old who's like the queen of death. Oh, it's so good. So good.
There's definitely bits of it though that sort of, when I was listening to it, so for one thing that sticks out to me, for example, was finding out when Harrow has been leading the Ninth House and she's been puppeting her dead parents who killed themselves in front of her because she went and unlocked the tomb, and that's like
the big thing you don't do.
And I was going, well, that will mess you up quite a lot. And like, she's just you know, and it's sort of...
And that's not even the worst of it.
That's like page 2, you know? That's like...
Harrow has such a tragic backstory that because it's been set up that with Gideon, their nemesis and...
her only peer. And the reason that she's her only peer is also one which is like... Oh, Harrow feels immense guilt for even being alive, and then feels guilty about feeling guilty. And it's just like, oh my gosh, if you could not produce a more f***ed up person in a lab, you know?
Yeah.
They're all just like messed up, but I think that kind of adds to the horror aspect of it. Like, it kind of, it adds to the, you know, it's not only the necromancy itself is like gothic horror. It's a la, sort of like Frankenstein, in the sense of like when Frankenstein was first written. It is, you know, the idea of animating this dead corpse is a bit yikes.
And also the whole like pulling lots of different bits from different people and the kind of the conglomerative sort of approach is
But like, in the sense of, you know, when you learn about their backstories, that entire whole thing is just the setup of this world is that they are set up to not fail necessarily, but there's no way of escaping this necromancy. It's so ingrained in their way of life that when you hear Gideon's point of view and she's blasé about it, there's some skeletons, you know, they just do stuff, you get animated as a skeleton, that's just the way it is around here. And I think that blaséness sort of helps the reader, A, to follow the main like plot points, but B, to, when you read it on a surface level, you don't necessarily pick up all of that horror. Maybe that's what made it a bit easier for me to read than like normal horror books that I can't get through.
Because I think it only comes up occasionally, but the fact that, Gideon's very flippant about skeleton constructs and skeleton servants, but also there is a bit very early on where she's like, part of the reason she wants to get out of the Ninth is because she knows that if she doesn't, she'll be there her whole life, and then even death won't get her out of servitude.
Mm-hmm.
She will still be there, for eternity, potentially. And that's horrifying. I mean, that's one of the reasons that fake Dulcie does what she does, is because she's been essentially dying of cancer for 10,000 years, and there's no way
out.
It's never going to end.
Yeah.
The horror of immortality, actually. I mean, a lot of people saying that Teacher is insane as well. Like, there's a lot of... Yeah. There's some fundamental horror of being alive too long, I think. And because I think, I mean, I'm bringing this back to Pratchett in a way that I always do, but there's something that, like, in Reaper Man, they talk about the fact that, like, what can the Harvest hope for if not for the care of the Reaper Man? Like, when everything else is gone, the certainty that you will die and it will be over is sometimes all that you have. Like, it's this fundamental truth, and it in some ways is a solace in its own weird way, and they don't fucking get that.
Yep.
Nobody gets that in this universe, and that's really horrifying.
Like, imagine what that would do to you psychologically.
Yeah.
And what does that do to you in terms of your, like, the entire structure of this universe, the religions, the everything is focused around necromancy and death, which in itself is it's a taboo topic to start with, but when it's like mixed in with that gothic horror, I mean, honestly, like, I think Tamsyn Muir did a brilliant job of making a book that takes quite a dark topic and make it very lighthearted and funny, but also like talking about that topic as well.
But yeah, it also doesn't, it's not lighthearted and funny because it's ignoring how up this is.
Yeah. It's going, this is up, and that's why, and the characters are going, this is up.
Like, to be a little bit dark about the real world for a moment.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't spend every minute of every day thinking about the horrors of, for example, capitalism, right?
Yeah.
But they
climate crisis or...
Yeah, but they are, pervasive, and, any sane person would be. Except we have to be a little bit insane just to not, throw ourselves in front of the nearest bus. And I think that's a very realistic take. Like, for that reason, it's like, I think that, in a world, in a science fiction world where, your entire society runs on the juice of something horribly up, you would be in denial about how horrifying it is. I mean, it's the same point that Omelas makes, right? You are not looking, you do not see it. Because that's the only way to continue to exist without going mad.
Yeah. But we, forgive us, lived happily during the war.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think that's a very realistic, like, that, to me, Gideon's point of view is, I mean, that's how I get through my day, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, the joys of late-stage capitalism. Yay.
On a slightly more light-hearted topic, I did want to talk about the fact that, is this maybe the queerest book we've read so far?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Is this the gayest?
I think
of
so.
all of us?
I think so.
Because I tell you what, it's so refreshing to me, and it's so fun and interesting and good to have the gayness is almost as assumed as heterosexuality normally is.
Yeah, it's not commented. There's no homophobia. They just do not have it. It's like, oh, of course Gideon is flirting with the pretty woman. It's a pretty woman. Everyone's trying to flirt with her,
Yeah. And just I mean, I think this is something that other people have probably talked about more eloquently than me on the internet, but just like, that, I don't know if you guys have seen it, there's an interview with Kate McKinnon from ages ago where she's discussing, like, wearing some completely out there outfit, and this guy that's interviewing her is like, oh, and a women, like, that's unattractive. And she's like, no, here's the secret. Women love that. And, like, it's very, like, everyone in this book that is attractive is, like, you're just like, yeah, they're fucking weird, awful people. And I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. It makes me very happy. Like, Harrow is, okay, there's less in this book, but, like, everybody fucking loves Harrow. Harrow has the most love interests and she's like the saddest, most pathetic,
wet meow meow, you know?
Wet cat of a human being. Like, she's a horrible gremlin who lives in a cemetery and like her only friends are bones, and like everybody is just like, I love
and
this.
And she's constantly covered in blood. Like, constantly covered in her own blood.
Yeah.
Because she just does not know when to...
She spends most of Harrow throwing up. She is throwing up for so much of Harrow. It's quite a difficult book for me to read in that regard. But, like, yeah, it's just, like, yeah, just, and, like, Gideon has spots and is, like...
18 years old.
Yeah, I don't know, everybody's, like, very gross and in their bodies in ways that I really like, and I feel is, like, something, I don't know,
It's the opposite of that everyone is beautiful and no one is horny, right?
Yes, absolutely.
It's like, these are real characters, and therefore you can have real feelings about them, instead of manufactured feelings.
Yeah, definitely. And, like, I like, let women be gross.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Let women be gross. We love to see it. Come on now.
And, like, like, insane women in this book. Like, Ianthe is insane. Cytherea is insane. I mean, like, basically, they all are. They're all deranged.
Yes.
And it's so good. It's so enjoyable. It's like, aren't you tired of being nice? Don't you want to go ape? And, like, at least 4 characters in this book were like, yeah, actually, yeah.
We've gone so far off the rails, we've fallen off the cliff.
Yeah. Like, apart from Gideon, who's never been nice in her life.
But then you also, I mean, you do have the balance of, like, you know, the 5th house and the 6th being, like, fairly...
Like, normal. Like, just nice... Like, the 5th house is just their professors, you know?
Yeah. They are the mum and dad friends of Canaan House. Oh, I am so soft for Magnus, and Magnus, like, very, like, kind of, like, quietly and awkwardly, but still, like, you know, enthusiastically trying to be Gideon's friend.
I know, I love it so much.
And just, like, being really, like, quite intimidated by the skull makeup and the not talking and stuff, but still, he just keeps trying.
He's like, this kid needs a dad. Is anyone going to parent this child? You know?
Yeah. He's great. I love him.
Mm-hmm.
I do like, though, in this book that we can't actually say who gets the F-bomb because it's been thrown around.
Oh yeah, everybody's just... I would like to put forward for the episode subtitle, We Do Bones, Motherfucker. Because, like, there's nothing we can come up with that's going to be better than that.
Yes.
Like...
Unless Apple Podcast says no.
No, we'll just put an asterisk in it. It's fine.
I don't know. I will go and check.
I will go and check if they don't like asterisks.
We had this conversation fairly recently. Like, we'll put asterisks in it. It's fine. Whatever.
We can put loads of asterisks. It's fine. Yeah, but it is. So maybe just don't listen to this book on your, like, smart device. You know, whilst, like, you know, trying to do cleaning, and it's very loud, and then you're like, oh, this is, everyone's hearing the swearing.
Lads, I learned recently, shout out to my beloved friends and their beloved small son, whose names I won't mention on this podcast for privacy reasons, in case, because I didn't clear this with them. One of the parents told me that she puts on this podcast around the house sometimes, and that's why their small son knows my voice and knows your voice. Like when they came to visit recently,
that is so cute.
And I'm just like, that's adorable. We do talk about deranged stuff, though. Are you sure it's okay? Just like, yeah, I don't put, I don't let put. There are some episodes I'll not put on. But anyway, shout out to you, my beloved friends, if you listen to this episode, and I'll make sure that those friends have read that book so that they have an excuse to listen to this episode.
But maybe just don't listen to it while the child's, like, in the room. Put headphones on.
Yes, yeah.
Otherwise, you're gonna have a toddler saying
bad words. Saying the bad words. Yeah.
No.
But yeah, this book has got swearing in it. Yes.
As I say, I think in terms of bits, I think this is maybe one of the best candidates we've ever had for Gaslight Gatekeep Girl Boss.
Oh my god.
Yes, this is true. Can I say Gatekeep as the Emperor?
Ooh. Yeah. Because I was going to say Harrow for, like, literally trapping Gideon in essentially slavery.
I mean, the thing about Harrow is a triple threat. Harrow is Gaslight Gatekeep Girl Boss. The only thing she's not hitting is male wife. Like, honestly.
Is there? Yeah, I was gonna say, for the Gaslight Gatekeep Girl Boss, is there anything she can't do? You know.
But it is literally just, I think if you swap male wife for manslaughter, as sometimes people do,
yeah,
I think,
well,
then
you're
she's got it all.
implying that she kills people not on purpose.
That's true.
Actually, does she kill people in this book? Like, does she kill Cytherea? Because I think she dies of the turbo cancer that Palamedes
Yeah,
gives
I think
her.
they wear her out enough.
Exactly,
that
they
I
just
think
like,
that's what
you know,
gets her, I think.
her hit points are gradually dropping to 0.
Yeah. It's a team effort.
Like, does Harrow actually kill anyone? She didn't kill her parents.
Because it's mostly constructs, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, I think she would argue, I think, that, as would Gideon, that she killed her parents.
Oh, yeah, and it's like, no, the parents killed themselves. Like, both of you were children, and the adults are the ones responsible here, so...
Yeah.
That's, to me, the most horrifying bit of the entire book, and we don't even see it in sort of in first person, as it were, is the idea that her parents just very calmly killed themselves and wanted her to kill herself too. Like, just completely, like, appearing rational and, like, yes, this is just the logical thing to do. Hung themselves.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Really well
it's
done.
Terrifying.
Yeah.
And, like, the fact that their cavalier also
yeah.
just did it without question is, like,
Bad.
It's really, really horrifying.
But yeah.
But yeah. No, I think Girl Boss, if we go outside Harrow for this,
Our cup overfloweth with girl bosses in this book.
yeah, I think Yanthi is up there for me.
I mean, Cytherea as well. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. It might be Cytherea. Don't know. Don't really care.
Yeah, I that's the one that I have the most, like, I think, range on. This is why I keep calling her fake Dulcie, because then I don't have to worry
It's true.
But yeah, I think I would like to nominate either Magnus or Pal for male wife. I think they've both got strong male wife credentials.
I agree.
In this book. But yeah.
I think Nibiria's turn would like to be a male wife to Coronabeth, except that he is just not. He doesn't have the male wife's temperament. You know.
He's constitutionally unsuited.
Exactly. Yeah.
He could maybe manage being. I don't know. It's very she's Barbie, he's just Ken.
Yes.
I think.
Yeah, but he's like so obnoxious. He's so obnoxious.
I do enjoy the fact that, like, Nibirius in any other book would be he's like the hot YA protagonist.
Yes.
And nobody looks at him twice because he's surrounded by lesbians who are like,
exactly.
I want the blood sweat one, please.
Yes.
I want the enormously hench butch with the two-handed sword.
Although the two-handed sword is hidden for so much of this book. Like,
yes,
imagine you've just been, like, going through a murder mystery with this incredibly attractive, like, butch redhead in the skull paint.
Yeah.
And at the end of it, it's like, she pulls out a Zweihander, and you're like, oh my god. Like, how is, like, Camilla, the only reason Camilla is not dying...
Screw the rapier, I'm getting this huge broadsword.
I think the whole plot of this book would have been derailed if Gideon just had the sword, the main sword, the whole time. And I don't mean, and I mean this in the, like, the Riz would be off the charts.
Yeah, exactly.
You know? She would just be, everybody would just be falling down over her constantly. Nobody would get anything done because they'd just be constantly like, oh, please, Gideon, please fight somebody with your two-handed sword. Please step on me.
Just stand here and watch in the background.
Yep.
No reason why.
Yeah. Like, just nobody would be becoming a lictor. I think even fake Dulcie would have been like, you know what, actually, we could just stay here forever and watch Gideon hit things with a sword. I'm fine with that. We're all okay with that, right?
Yeah, like, we're getting free food. I'm not dying of the cancer any faster, you know?
Yeah. I mean, they can't leave, so just stuck there. They might as well just, yeah. Mm-hmm. What would our darling dear Gosmog rate this book?
10. No question. Like, legit, I was reading this and, like, by halfway through I was like, this is a 10.
It's like, I think it's so, the shenanigans are endless and without
Off the charts.
cease. The violence, the grossness. She is a horrible, stinky cat.
Oh, she's the worst.
But there are no cats or cat-like creatures.
Harrow is referred to... Harrow is a pathetic wet cat, I feel.
Harrow exhibits cat-like behaviour. I do also think that the way that the Sixth socialises very cat. I think Camilla behaves in a distinctly cat-like fashion.
Yes.
She's like, I will be in the room with you and I will occasionally say very laconic things that indicate that I think you're an idiot.
Like, or I will give you my leftovers, and this indicates deep respect.
Yeah. And, like, the knives, the fact that she is primarily just give me 2 knives, please.
Yeah.
Somebody pointed out that also the Gideon and Cam both recognizing each other as not instantly fighting with their natural weapons. They're like, they're immediately twigging the, like, is just a very like closeted.
I have perceived you.
Gay. Yeah, like same hat.
Yes,
Same
exactly.
hat? Sort of moment,
I will campaign hard for a 10 on this one.
Okay, so shall we say our second 10?
Yeah.
Cat rating.
This
of a
and
10.
Temeraire, I'm happy for this to be on the same shelf as Temeraire, you know?
Okay.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So does that mean, like Temeraire, we're going to have to do book 2?
Oh, yeah, no, I mean, we are
what a
absolutely-
shame. Oh, so sad because...
God, I am so excited for you guys to read Harrow. I cannot even.
Listen, I own it now. I'm going to read it probably on Wednesday. Like, we're recording on a Monday. I'm probably going to read it. I don't have time tomorrow, but Wednesday, it's on. It's so on.
The live texting is going to be epic.
Absolutely. I'm going to be here for some. I'm going to be in the house with you for some of it, so...
You just come and yell.
Exactly.
Just be like, ah!
You're not going to get any work done on Wednesday. I'm off work, but so...
Oh, I'm off work on Wednesday. I'm off work all this week. It's delightful. I'm just going to sleep and read Tamora Pierce.
I was going to say, what else are you guys reading? But you're reading Tamora Pierce, so it's already
I've got the third Tortal Quartet. I'm reading Protector of the Small, and it's so goddamn good. I love it so much. And I'm very excited. If we get that far, I'm very excited for you guys to read it because I think you will really enjoy it.
Oh no, 100%. I think we should. Well, I mean, let's be honest. We're just going to have like more Temeraire, more Alana, and
I think next season is going to be
Harrow.
the like trying to get through series season. We need to have another Temeraire. We need to have another Artemis Fowl.
It's going to be
We
the
need to-
sequels series. Yeah.
It's fine. It can tie it in. I can tie it in with social media posts. It'd be great. You know, we'll get all those views.
The book I've been reading, because I have actually been reading something, is the second edition. I've been reading a book called Reinforcement Learning by Sutton and Bartow, and it is about a very specific type of machine learning sort of technique discipline. And I'm really excited because I've been meaning to get into machine learning like as an academic thing for ages. And this is, I think, going to be specific enough that it's not going to it's going to get really deep into a specific thing and have like loads of cool maths in it, but it's also not trying to cover the entirety of the entire field. So I'm really excited, and it's like a proper chunky academic book.
Hey, this is unrelated to anything, but guys, I just got the update email from Buzzsprout about our downloads, and Sir Gawain and the Green Knight currently has 69 total downloads.
Nice. Nice.
Which, if you haven't listened to already while you're listening to this episode, just queue it up after this one. Actually,
it'll be ages. We're recording way in advance. Just so
we record way in advance. I have read no books. I have watched Good Omens season 2 and cried, and I think that's basically what I've done. Have I read anything? No, I haven't. I've been really lazy and listening to Taylor Swift on loop. So yeah.
Fair enough.
I'm very boring like that. But thank you all so much for listening. Remember to give us a follow on your podcast platform so you never miss an episode. And if you enjoyed this episode, give us a like or review, and consider sharing the episode with a friend who maybe has read this book already and you want to share the podcast love with them. You can also find us on all of our socials or email us via our website. It's all in the description below. So say hello, send us a message, and recommend us some books to read. Big virtual hugs, and we will see you next time. Bye.